Okay, here's the notes for section 8.2. And 8.2 is about histograms. Now, histograms are another visual way to represent data. And really all they are bar graphs where the bars touch each other. And you'll learn much more about this later on. But for now, when you draw them, just make sure the bars touch each other as you set up your graph. And we'll do an example of one of those in a couple of minutes. You're first going to be asked to identify some distribution shapes. And so let me just go over those a little bit. There are better pictures on page 354. But the first one is symmetric. It makes kind of a bell curve, if you will. You've probably heard that before, where the data goes right back up and right back down, and the tallest peak is right in the middle. That's called a normal distribution, or it's symmetric. Okay, if all the bars are about the same height, it's okay if like one of them is a little lower, but they should all be about the same height. That's called flat or uniform. Okay, and now these next two are where the data kind of tails off to one side. The peak is on one side and then it gets smaller and smaller. Here it gets smaller and smaller off to the right. These are called skewed. And when it tails off to the right like this, it's called a right skew. Here the peak is on the left side and it like sort of grows up to that peak. So it starts off small and gets bigger and bigger and bigger until the peak is all the way over here on this side. And this one's got a tail on the left, and this is called a left skew. So if it starts off small and grows, it's called a left skew. If it starts off bigger and then drops off, that's called a right skew. And the last one is if you have two peaks, they're about the same size, that's called bimodal. Okay, again, look at page 354 when you're doing your assignment, and that'll be really helpful. Again, pardon the coughing. Okay, so let's make a histogram. Okay, so here's a quick example. Now, luckily, they will give you all of this information here. They'll tell you kind of how to set up your graph like this. This can be a little tricky if you just have a list of numbers. But these are going to go on the x-axis across the bottom. Those are your classes, if you will. So we've got 0 to 5, 6 to 10, 11 to 15, and 16 to 20. The frequency goes on the vertical axis, and that's the number of things you have in each of those groups. So we have 3 wins between 0 and 5. Or I should say that again, I'm sorry. The swim team won between 0 and 5 races 3 times. Those could be all zeros, it could be a 1, 2, and a 3. We don't know. We just know that there are 3 numbers between 0 and 5. Okay? We know that the swim team won between 6 and 10 races 5 times. Again, we don't know what those numbers are. We just know that there were 5 there are 5 numbers in this range in our data. Okay? There's 2 numbers between 11 and 15 and 4 numbers between 16 and 20. These are the frequencies over here. Again, these are what go on the vertical axis. So all we're going to do is draw our bars and we're just going to make them touch. So 0 to 5, frequency is 3, so we go up to 3 and draw a bar. Okay, 6 through 10 is 5, so we're going to go up to 5 here and draw a bar. 11 through 15 is 2, so we go to 2. And 16 to 20 is 4, so we go up to 4, something like that. And there's our histogram for this situation, for the number of races the swim team won, I guess. It will be set up for you like that on your assignment. A lot of the questions will be involving having you read a histogram and interpret it, and that can be a little tricky, but I'm going to let you tackle that on your own. Make sure and do the odd problems first and check your answers when you're doing those. But when you have to set up the histogram, you just put these ranges, these classes on the bottom, just like that. You want to set up your graph so they're pretty even. I know this is not graph paper, and if you don't use graph paper, that's fine, but do your best to draw a neat graph where these are all the same width, and then the frequency goes up on the side, and you want to make your bars that tall depending on the numbers and the problem. And if the numbers are really big, like say you have a frequency of a 15, then you can skip. You can go 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, skip by 2s instead, just to help you scale everything so it fits nicely. Just make sure that you're accurate when you set it up. Okay, I hope that helps, And thank you, and please let me know if you have any questions.